The Arman Mahmoudian, stručnjak za Bliski Istok. Arman, hello and welcome to the Al Jazeera Balkans channel, and thank you so much once again for taking the time to speak to us. Now, when we talk about Syria's return to the international fold, it seems irreversible at this point. Will these efforts to rehabilitate Assad set a damaging precedent for accountability?
Look, that's a very good question. In general, the decade ago, the last event of decade in Syria set a specific precedent for the establishment, political establishment across the world, that they are similar to the Syrian regime and our experiences, or would experience what Syria experienced in the last decades. And what the lesson that they learned, if you can combine a loyal and devoted base that they are willing to fight with you, which is in the case of the Syria would be largely speaking would be the Alawites, and to a lesser extent Ismailis and Christians. Devoted foreign supporters, which in case of the Syria still would be Iran and Russia, and a willingness to suppress and confront your people, your pro-people or rebels or opposition. You might be able, you probably are able, but of out-timing them, out-resourcing them, and winning the war, and eventually the international, actors would recognize you, acknowledge you, because they need to deal with some sovereign state in the geographical and territory that you control. And I think that's a lesson that many have learned from the Syria.
Right. So, arguments in favor of normalization claim that it will foster stability inside the country, it will moderate the country's international behavior and counter Iranian and Russian influence. So, what are your thoughts on that?
It's a very complicated question, because the answer to that question would be both yes and no. It would be yes to a lesser extent or to some extent, because, well, people who are arguing in favor of the normalization of the relation with Syria, basically the core of their argument is that to prevent Syria to fall or turn to another Libya. As you know better than me, that in Libya we are not dealing with the same or one united sovereign state. The country is absolutely divided. On map is just unified. In Syria, already in the north of the Syria, that areas that are not Syrian regime controls, anti-Syrian regimes control, rebels are controlling. We do see three types of the government. We are witnessing the national army government or the interim government. We are having the SDF and corps backed by United States. And also we have an area that the Tahrir or Salam militia or Salvation government is controlled. But on the other hand, the rest of the Syria is unified, except Al-Tanf area, under the Syrian regime. So the argument is that it is better to let the Syria have one government. At least there would be one actor that controls, maintains the administrative duty and daily-based security, rather than the territorial collapse of the government in such a, let's say, vulnerable region. But also I said that the answer would be no, because those who are saying that it would counter the Iranian and Russian influence in Syria, I'm not quite on the same side with them. I actually believe that this normalization between the Arab states of the Persian Gulf and a larger state Arab wars with the Syria would benefit Iran and Russia. Look, first of all, we don't have any evidence to suggest that these normalization being done or being proceeded behind Iran's and Russia's back, specifically speaking Iran, because it started with UAE under the cover of establishing an assistance lines for the Syrian people who've been damaged by the horrifying earthquake. But it seems the report suggests that the channel that mediated between UAE and Syria was Oman, which is a trusted channel of Iran. And the second of all, the current de-escalation or detente between the Syria and Saudi Arabia is happening right after the kind of the treaty that been meditated between Iran and Saudi Arabia by China. We are specifically witnessing a sort of de-escalation on a regional scale between Saudi Arabia and Iran's Shia proxy in Yemen, and today in Syria. So I don't think so that there have been these two countries being bypassed. Also, we should keep in mind, when you support a state in a civil war, you have to support them within through a different stage. The first stage is the war itself, which Iran and Russia successfully secured a survival. The second stage is post-war, the rebuilding, which is very important, because right now in Syria, we are witnessing on and off protests, and these protests are very unique because they are taking places in regions that they are traditionally based off the Assad's base, areas that are supported by Alawites, populated by Alawites and Daruzis and Christians. So it signals Syria requires financial assistance to rebuild its country, to prevent another revolution. And I think that's the place that Arab states, wealthy Arab states of Persia and Gulf can come handy and help the Syrian regime and vis-a-vis its allies.
Right, Arman, but I mean, from the perspective of Gulf Arab countries, some of them who have been supporting Syria's opposition for years, why now? Why would they be interested in reconciling and reestablishing diplomatic relations with Damascus now?
There are a variety of reasons. I think on one hand, we have to keep in mind that in Saudi Arabia, specifically speaking Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, is dealing with the succession issues. So sooner or later, he has to step in, on to be the new king of the Saudi Arabia. And I think he has concern that the transition of power to himself would not be as easy as he thinks or as many hopes. And for that, he has started to kind of pave the ground by de-escalating on the regional event. The recent talks with Yemeni, the mediation with the peace, let's say the de-escalation deal with Iran, and also what happens with Syria. It shows that Saudi Arabia, specifically speaking, wants to focus on home by distancing itself from the adventures, campaigns, or tensions in the region. On the other layer, I can say that it's also to some extent related to the events in Iran, and by events in Iran, I'm specifically speaking mean the rapid increase of Iranian nuclear activity. The rapid increase of nuclear activity is increasing the chances of the confrontation between Iran and West, or increasing the chances of Iran turning to a nuclear power, or at least a nuclear threshold power. So it might also be encouraging reason for Arab states to kind of de-escalate with Iran to prevent any chances of confrontation with Iran or being dragged into a war with Iran while they have the domestic issue. As I think the last thing that are making also an impact is a war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine heavily got West engaged. We do know that many Western countries are prioritizing Ukraine over the rest of the region. Again, the increase of the uranium enrichment in Iran to an extent that never been like that. And West, let's say that, I don't want to say playing along, but not also confronting it as it was expected or as it could be done in past, shows and signals Arab states that it is time for them to confront many issues in the region without having West backing them. And for that, they want to de-escalate, they want to decrease potential sources of conflicts.
Now, you mentioned Saudi Arabia, you mentioned the Emirates, but what's interesting is that Turkey, which has been very supportive of the Syrian opposition from the very beginning, from March, April 2011, they've been showing, giving hints that they are ready to speak to Damascus. The head of Turkish intelligence, Hakan Fidan, has already been speaking to his Syrian counterpart through Moscow and through Tehran. President Erdogan himself said that he is now more open he has nothing against meeting Bashar al-Assad. Why would Turkey change its stance? Why at this point?
Because, to be honest and to be fair, Ankara and Turkey, Mr. Erdogan himself specifically speaking, they are in the most complicated situation.
Right.
Because on one hand, Mr. Erdogan invested a great deal of political investment in the Syrian civil war, hoping that Assad would be toppled and Syria would be in a sphere of Turkey's influence, or at least a friendly country that connects the corridor from the Turkey to the Levant and vis-a-vis to the Palestine. So, but none of them took in place. And right now, Mr. Erdogan has strong challenges in home. It's not only about the earthquake. We are witnessing the problem with the problems and the struggles that he had ahead of himself for the presidential election. And one of the things that we have to also keep in mind that Turkey carried a large scale of weight of the Syrian refugees. The recent earthquake actually in Turkey kind of uncovered that, as many Turkish politicians, some of them close to Erdogan himself, said that they are witnessing the emergence of a little or a small Syria within and inside Turkish territory. Mm-hmm. So there are many motivations for Mr. Erdogan who wants to de-escalate, to at least a little bit ease the pressure in home on himself because of his policy in regard to Syria.
Right. Arman, as always, it's a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much once again for your thoughts.
Pleasure.
Damask se nada da će regionalno pomirenje otvoriti pristup dugo očekivanim sredstvima za obnovu oštećene zemlje. Međutim, analitičari kažu kako je malo vjerovatno da će se to za sada dogoditi u većim razmjerama. Fizička šteta zbog rata procjenjuje se na $100 milijardi. Poštovani gledalci, bilo je to sve u ovom izdanju emisije Granice Istoka. Ako ste propustili bilo koji dio, emisiju možete pregledati na našoj web stranici balkans.aljazeera.net. Hvala na pažnji.